This is episode number 28 of the Sports Consiglieres Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Whalen. Along with me always is Jerry Calla. Um, Staying with this Montreal Expos theme, Danny Gallagher has gave us opportunity to speak to another guest. Our next guest is from Long Island. He pitched for the Montreal Expos 2 seasons back in 1974-75. It's our pleasure to introduce pitcher for the Montreal Expos, Don DeMola. Don, how you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, Jim, except for a little rain. You guys getting the rain too?
Yeah, we're getting rain. You still out in Long Island?
Yeah, I'm in Smithtown.
Okay, yeah. So we're in New Jersey. So I reached out to Danny, I guess, last year. I was doing a solo show, and I was intrigued about the Expos 1994. During the strike season, that was kind of like the year that the Expos kind of it was kind of the beginning of the end. We built a relationship with Danny, and we just found like the story was very intriguing. We were getting a lot of good traction from the Expos itself. You pitched for the Expos. So just tell us a little bit about growing up in Long Island, and then how did you end up with the Expos?
Let's see. I moved out to Comac, which is in the town of Smithtown, in 1957. So I'm 72 years old now. Was born in 1952. So at any rate, went to high school. We had high school, Comac. They had one high school, Comac North. So they, in my junior year, they split the high schools. So we went to another school called Comac South. That was the first year was 69, and there was no seniors in the school. So we played a non-league schedule for what do you call it, for varsity teams. And then the next year we were picked for last place, first year in varsity, first graduating class. Anyway, we went to the semifinals of the county. I went 9-2, had 75 innings with 145 strikeouts. I won the Yastrzemski Award for that year. I'm the only guy that won the Yastrzemski Award, but only 1 year of varsity played. I was New York Daily News All-Star. I was drafted. I was seen 2 weeks before the draft, and the Yankees drafted me 7th. So I went to spring training, and in the following year, I went to rookie ball. Following year, I was invited to the Major League camp at 18 years old. So I was down there when Fritz Peterson and Kekich were flipping their wives around, and when Thurman Munson signed his Rookie of the Year contract. He came out of Ralph Houck's office smiling from ear to ear when he got a raise from $14,000 to $28,000.
Wow.
Anyway, that year I played in West Palm and Oneonta. And then the following spring was that player strike, and that's what really canned me. CBS owned the team. I probably had the best arm in that whole organization, but there was too much corporate crap going on that they let me go. So that year I was very hurt. I didn't play, and I stayed home and I coached. I did some summer baseball camps. And anyway, I started to get an itch, and I called my high school coach, and he got me a tryout with this guy Tom Giordano. I don't know if you heard him. His nickname was T-Bone. He recently passed away a few years ago. He was 90-something years old, still scouting. The guy was a piece of work. Anyway, I thought he was at Milwaukee, and he comes and I had to throw against walls and stuff. I was getting a tryout in December. I couldn't find anybody to catch me. So I threw against walls, this, that. So the first day I go in the gym and I throw, and he says, "Oh, can you throw tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So he comes back with Larry Benoith. Larry Benoith and I became very, very close. Larry was a Long Island guy, went to St. John's, was the minor league pitching coach. Anyway, so after that second stint, Larry said I threw harder than anybody they had. So they signed me. I went to A-ball and went to West Palm, went to Quebec City AA. That's where I hooked up with Gary. Gary and I became good friends, Carter. Then we went to instructional league, and then we both went down to Puerto Rico. So that's pretty much sums up how I wound up in Montreal. I'll tell you one story. When we got down to Puerto Rico, nobody knew who I was because I was a free agent. I was A-balled and double-A. We played for a team called Caguas. We had Mike Schmidt on the team, Jerry Morales, Willie Montanez, Felix Millon, Ed Figueroa.
Wow.
Foote was there, Jim Eschian, Jay Johnstone, Sexto Lescano. I mean, all those teams down there were loaded. You know what I mean? And you were allowed to send 8 Americans that were imports, they called. So Gary and I were at a double-A, and we got sent down there. And then there was a bunch of guys from AAA who didn't know who the hell I was. And anyway, the first night, the game, we missed like 2 weeks of the season. We're playing Santurce, which Frank Robinson was the manager. On that team was Rico Cardi, Orlando Cepeda, Elrod Hendricks, Chris Chambliss, Mickey Rivers, Dave Kingman, you name it. I mean, all right. I mean, all these teams are like this. This is what the Arizona Fall League's all about now. Those teams got greedy. They wanted money from the teams to send players there. So the teams told them to go screw, and everybody that goes to that Arizona Fall League now is a top prospect, and they pay for it. But I think it's like 10 or 15 grand a prospect, which isn't a whole lot of money. But they ruined it for down by the Caribbean. So anyway, I go in the game. Larry Christensen was starting. He hurt his elbows. I think it was his first of 3 elbow operations I think he had. Anyway, I pitched the last 5 in the third. I strike out 10. I walk 1. I give up 2 hits, no runs. And I'm walking off the mound into the dugout. And Bobby Wine was our manager. Bobby Wine's still alive, by the way. He lives out in East Northport still. You know that?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, he was the manager. And as I'm walking into the dugout, he goes up to Wino to Foote to congratulate him. And Foote must have said, "Hey, where'd we get this guy from?" And all of a sudden I hear Foote scream, "This effing guy is in our organization?" He goes, "This effing guy is in our organization?" And so that's how it started. We wound up winning the Caribbean World Series. And actually, that was the beginning of the end of what ruined my arm because Mark kept making me go back. I went back the next year. And then the year after that, I had to go back to the Dominican. And my second year in the big leagues, my arm hurt the whole second year. So, but you don't say nothing back then because they don't kiss their asses like they do now.
Well, Don, this is Jerry. Welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us. You know, like Jimmy said, you know, we're 2 guys from Jersey, New York Yankee fans, and you know, we're becoming de facto Expo supporters here because we had Danny on twice. Then we just had Larry Parrish on recently, and you know, the following, which is great to see. You know, you have your Expos cap on. The following that the Expos still have, you know, is really really amazing. So one thing I wanted to touch upon, I have to ask, I saw that all the guys you just named, you must have had a blast socially, but that's probably another story for another day. But could you tell us about your first roommate with the Expos? Because I believe he went on to some bigger and better things outside of baseball.
Yeah. You know who that is?
That's correct.
Yeah.
My mom was a big fan of his.
Jack?
Talking about Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jack,
my mom was a big fan of his.
Jack is from a town not too far from me. He was a year or 2 older than me.
All right, so you go to the Expos. You're a Long Island guy. He's a Long Island guy, correct?
Yeah, we were roomies. Yeah. Me, him, and his buddy Randy. I forget his last name. Randy.
So we're talking about, for those listening, we're talking about Jack Scalia.
Yeah.
Appeared on Dallas. Really had a good career, soap opera star, and actually many very good characters played in Law and Order. So tell us about the experience with Jack.
Oh, Jack was nuts, man. But he was he hurt his shoulder, his rotator cuff. And they told him that if he could come back and throw 75 pitches hard, that they would sign him again. But let me tell you something, man. He missed his calling because when we went out to San Francisco the first time, when I made the team in spring training, I went from AA to Puerto Rico to spring training. I made the team, and so I left. I beat Gary to the big leagues. Gary came up in September, but when we went to San Fran, Jack was number 2 male model in the world at that point, and he comes into the clubhouse with 2 chicks, one on each arm. But he was. I think he was from Brooklyn. And he really had that crazy Brooklyn, like I don't care, like John Travolta in the movie, the
Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, really nuts like that. Jack was like that, but I really liked Jack, and you know what? I felt really bad for him, and you could see that this guy was going to be a star. He was such a good-looking guy.
All right, so then that takes you, to. Basically, that's your first roommate. You're with the Expos now. Just elaborate, because we know it's kind of, a tough thing to overcome back then. Obviously, today would have been a different story. But what do you think? Like Gene Mark would you use the word obsessed to get you to pitch during the winter, or how would you categorize why he was so, wanted you pitching winter ball?
I pitched 5 and 6 innings in tie games into the 16th, 17th inning, not giving up a run, and my team couldn't score a damn run. And, so, I mean, today, if you pitch 6 innings, I'm going to make $30 million a year. And I mean, then I get a spot start. I have 2 years in the big leagues. My 3rd year, I was there. I had elbow surgery, finally. And it was calcium. It wasn't Tommy John. And I was in the bullpen when Tommy John ran off the mound. That's another thing. But I mean, when I what was I just saying? Shit.
About your arm surgery.
Yeah, but when it caught up to me and I had to have the surgery, he wanted me to be a starter. Why did I have to go to be a starter? That's it. I got a spot start in against the Pirates. Renko cut his finger on something, and he couldn't pitch. And so I get a start, and I wound up having – I go into the 6th inning of the game against the Pirates, 0-0. I didn't walk anybody for 18 innings, and I didn't give up any runs for 18 innings. That was the first scoreless inning streak. And then that was the last start I got. And then I went the next year I had a 25 2/3 scoreless inning streak. Do you know Mariano Rivera don't have that?
Oh, listen, Clay Holmes just got $38 million to be a starter, and we can leave that for another day as well. But
I was a starter. When I pulled in that Pirate game, I pulled a little muscle in my shoulder, so I went out of the game, and then they sent me down. They needed my roster spot for Larry Bittner. Okay, so they sent me to AAA to start for a month. I went down there. I went 5-0 with a 1.9. I had 3 complete game shutouts in a row. Okay, and I had pitched 48 innings, had 60 strikeouts or something like that. I forget what it was. And 3 shutouts in a row, complete game victories. I go back to Montreal, put back in the bullpen. That make any sense to you guys?
No.
But that was all, and Don, that was all Gene, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Then, he used to tell me, he used to call me over and he'd say, actually, he called me in his office one day and he says, don't forget, I was young, and I had Mike Torres. I didn't have any friends because everybody I knew was in AA. Parrish wound up coming up to AA. I played with Larry in A-ball, AA, Dominican, and the big leagues. And did he tell you about the time when he got his face caved in Quebec City?
No,
he left that one. He left that out.
He told that story out. But he said we got hit with Ed Whitson. That was the only injury he really died.
Well, there was a big brawl on the field, and somebody hit him with a bat.
Oh, jeez.
And caved in his face and shit. And they were sending him home. And I was home. I was in Montreal. We were home. And Mel Didier calls me up and says, hey, there's a convention in town. We can't get a room for Parrish. Can you put him up? So I had a studio apartment with an alcove. So I gave him the mattress. I slept on the box spring. Then the next night, I come back. We had a day game. I come back. He's sitting in the lobby. He missed the damn plane. So I had to sleep on the box spring again. You imagine they couldn't find a hotel room?
Yeah.
And they asked me? But no, Larry was good, man. Larry could pick it. Larry could hit it. Man, Larry could hit a strike. He was a hard guy, tough guy, but he was a good ball player, man. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, he was a pleasure to have on. He was a great guest. So one last question, and I'll swing it back to Jimmy. What was it like playing with Gary Carter?
Well, Gary and I, we roomed together 2 winters in Puerto Rico. That's where, like I said, I beat him to Montreal. Then his wife, Sandy, she came down there the first year when we had – down there you had a break between Christmas and New Year's. There were no games. So some guys flew home. John Stone and Licio was the Montreal trainer. He roomed with John Stone. So they both flew home to California. So I took their apartment while they were gone, and Gary's bride-to-be, Sandy, came to visit us. And I don't know why they didn't go to Johnstone's apartment, because the place me and him had was a fucking joke. But I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But I taught her how to make mashed potatoes. But Gary was always she thought mashed potatoes came in a box.
Yeah.
Then what do you call one day when we're on our way to Puerto Rico, we had a connecting flight. I forget where it was. And I turn around and I don't see him. And I'm like, what the hell? Where'd he go? So I go to the gate. 10 minutes later, he comes running down the thing, and he comes up, and I said, what happened to you? He said, a guy offered me $100 to sign 3 pictures. And I said, you took the money? Like that. Because back then, none of this crap was, it wasn't
Yeah.
I said, you took the money? And he said, yeah. So, I mean, but we got along. He was, we were like Felix and Oscar, man, Yeah, it was.
Which one were you, Don? Just
Huh?
Which one were you, Felix or Oscar?
No, I was Oscar. He was Felix.
Yeah.
One time, what did he do? He I forget what he did to me, but I hung all of his the second year we lived in a brand new place, and I had the super wrapped around my finger. We had 3 recliners in the living room. I mean, who has that? We had a 2-bedroom place, so I had my own room because I was older than me. Him and Danny Warden, we were roomies. Danny played for Bayamon. Gary and I were on Caguas. So, but we roomed together. So they had their own room and I had mine. So Gary, what the hell did he do? He did something to me, pissed me off. So I hung all of his jock straps on every door in the hallway, down from the elevator to our room. So when he came back from working out, he had a surprise to see all of his underwear and jock straps hanging. No, we had a good time together. We had a lot of fun. We were driving to Caguas. First year we played in Caguas was like 30 minutes inland from Santurce. So you had to drive there, and we always had an award. We gave each other the Conio of the Year award for who could drive the worst, because those people down there had no rule for nothing. They drove on sidewalks, the middle islands. They didn't care. They drove past you on the right. They passed you on this. Coming back one night, Gary's driving, and there's a 2-lane road. One, one way, one the other way. So there's always a long light there. So Gary, we always shoot up the middle and get up to the light, and then cut and pass the car in front. So it just so happened there was a couple of people walking across the street, and Gary just misses them when he hits the gas, and there was a cop behind us. We didn't see him. The cop pulls us over. Gary gets out. He's talking to the cop in front of the car, and Gary was always big with lollipops. The next thing I know, he's giving the cop a lollipop. And then he let us go, because when he found out who we were, he let us go. But we almost ran over 3 people. I mean, it was it's kind of funny,
But just get back to the playing in Montreal. I mean, I guess you played in Jerry Park.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it was an outdoor stadium. The weather really wasn't. Weather up there was. There's different stories that they still painted the grass green because it was still frozen. They couldn't cut it. I mean, just talk about playing.
That's not the coldest place I've played in the big leagues. I got news to you, man. Chicago and San Francisco in July.
Yeah.
Candlestick. 4 foot high, little tornadoes of garbage coming down right past you, going into the corner. Sitting in the bullpen, they come zing right by you. 4 foot high little tornadoes. I mean, even you asked the TV guys and stuff when they said when they were sitting up in that booth, no place was colder than San Fran. We're off the bay there. Oh man, frozen July one time.
Yeah, I was out in San Francisco in the summertime. It was it definitely is not. It's not California.
Oh yeah,
it's cold. It gets cold. So. But it's about your arm surgery, like and pitching. What I guess obviously you're a power pitcher. So what were your pitching?
Well, my fastball when I was given the amount of rest that I could, whatever, which really wasn't that much. When you pitch 2 innings one day, 4th and 6th and 2, and have maybe a day off, and so I've hit triple digits, and I know that. Not by my own accolades, by people that I faced that have said to me, and Jim Eschian was a catcher. Bill Naharodny was a catcher for 10, 11 years. Both these guys, I faced Naharodny twice during that stint when I went down to Memphis for the month. Yeah. Naharodny faced me both times when I had because I was starting now, I was getting every 5th day. So every time I stepped out on the mound, I had lightning shit. And I had catfish control. I had very good control until my arm started to get weak in my elbow. My first year, I had a 3-to-1 ratio, almost 4-to-1 ratio from balls to strikes. My second year, I had hardly any. If you look at it, it's crap. I wasn't even close to 1 strikeout an inning, and I think I had 60 strikeouts, and I walked 40-something. For me, that's terrible. If you look at all my records, all my minor leagues, you'll see that. Except for maybe my rookie year, my first year, but other than that, you always see I'm 3 or 4 to 1 to strikeouts to walks. I had excellent control, and then that started to falter because of my elbow. I felt the weakness in my elbow, but back then you don't say nothing because then they say bye.
Yeah, because I think looking at your stats, I guess you had 60 appearances, I guess in 75. So
and that was I had a 1.9 going into the All-Star break. But he kept putting me in game. But I had no saves or nothing because the team stunk.
Yeah. And that was the year that you guys lost 107 games. So is that the 107, the 70? Yeah. So.
But he kept putting me in games. He took out Dennis Blair one night. He's winning 3-0 in the 6th inning. After the 6th inning, he just takes him out, puts me in the game.
Yeah.
He didn't give him any hits. I mean, not that he didn't give him any hits, but I mean, he didn't give him any runs. He didn't have a bad inning. They just took him out.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, Don, that year when you had the great ERA, who was the best offensive player on the Expos?
In 74, the first year?
Yeah.
Damn.
Who would you say?
I think Ron Hunt had 300. Fairley was pretty good. Willie Davis, when we got him, Singleton was good. Kenny, to pick out one guy, I don't know. Ron Fairley, he was for a little short, chubby guy, man, he was pretty. We were good friends. He was a good ball player. He was a good ball. I like Ron. He passed a couple of years ago, I think. But Bailey with the home runs, but you throw Bailey a breaking ball, goodbye. No, there really wasn't any one guy that really stood out.
Now you mentioned Jim Essien, right?
Yeah.
Now tell us the story when you ran into him many years later after both your playing days.
Oh, well, he was managing.
Yes.
He was in Charlotte.
He was in the. I didn't know where it was. I knew he was in the minor
Charlotte.
leagues. Yeah,
He was Charlotte. He got the big leagues. He got a cup of coffee with the Cubs. But Escobar, him and I were really good friends, and he was in Double-A. It was him and Gary. He couldn't hit like Gary, but he was a hell of a catcher. Very good receiver. Oh wait, where'd you guys go? There you are. He couldn't hit like Gary.
Yeah.
You're still there, yeah, all right. So anyway, what happened was that's funny you asked that. I was in the fur business, and after baseball, I read it. I met a guy that, believe it or not, within 2 years, I was making coats, fixing them, and everything else, and I wound up spending 30 years in that business. But I was in Memphis because there were people there, and I was at the ballpark. I was at the ballpark to talk to the people at the ticket counter because they were still the same people that when I played. And I'm standing there, and a bus pulls up, and it's the Charlotte team. So I'm standing there, and the ticket booth's like right behind home plate. I don't know. You ever been to Memphis?
No.
So it's it's just a minor league. It's not a big deal. And their dugout's the first base side, and the guys are walking in, and I'm about 50, 60 feet, maybe a little bit longer from them. And all of a sudden I see Jim in his uniform, and he stops dead cold, and he looks at me, and I hadn't seen him in over 20 years, right? And he goes, Don DeMola, you could effing bring it.
Yeah.
First words out of his mouth.
Yeah.
You could effing bring it. And then
awesome.
And so he says they had a doubleheader. So back then, they played sevens. They didn't play nines. So I stayed for the first game, and he said he was staying at this hotel. He said, why don't you come and meet us there after the second game? So I went back to my hotel. I waited around, but I met him there like 11:30 or something. So we're sitting down, me, him, and his trainer. And he says, Don, he says, I've got 11 years behind the plate in the majors. He says, you threw as hard as anybody played the game. So when you hear stuff like that, my first year in Puerto Rico, Ed Figueroa was on the team. Him, Jerry Morales, Felix, they came to the ballpark every day with suit and ties on in winter ball. These guys were unreal. They were so classy. Then there was a left-handed pitcher, Domingo Figueroa. They're pissing in the shower, throwing banana peels out for the clubhouse kid to pick up, just throwing them on the carpet. But, you had such classy guys and such bums.
Yeah.
Anyway, when Eddie said to me, he was on the California Angels that year. You know who else was on that team, right?
You're talking that's 73.
73.
Well, Carew, go ahead. Carew wasn't there yet.
No, not a player. Pitcher.
Gene Mark.
Who?
Gene Mark.
Gene Mark?
No, pitcher on the Angels.
Nolan Ryan.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
You know what he said to me?
What's that?
I'll trade you for Nolan Ryan. So, and I'll tell you this one story. Here's another one. We were pitching against Houston. Greg Gross was up, and he for some reason it was like he was hitting 800 against us. I don't know. Always seemed like he was on base. Anyway, I struck him out looking on a 2-2 fastball on the outside corner on the black. When I walked in the dugout, Gene went like this. Come here. And when I went up to him, he says to me, no human being was going to hit that pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, things like that you don't forget.
Yeah.
So here's another one, all right? So the Pirates in Montreal. I'm throwing forget it. Ungodly. First guy up is Al Oliver. I throw 3 balls in a row. I come back with 3 more fastballs, all fastballs, swinging all 3, doesn't even foul one off. I mean, not even close. The next guy up is Bob Robinson, that big first baseman, you know. 3 pitches, gone. History. Next guy up is Bill Robinson. First pitch, I splinter his bat all over the infield. Foley grabs a little dribbler, throws him out. So the bottom of the inning, Bob Bailey's up. He walks. He goes to first base. This is the only reason I know this story is because Beatsy told me this when he came back in the dugout. So he goes to first base, and Bob Robinson is there. And Bob Robinson says to him, "Who the F was that last guy on the mound?" He goes 100 miles an hour, moving all over the place. That's what I mean. You know, I didn't say to myself, hey, I threw this hard. It's everybody telling me. What in Double-A one time, Eddie Riley was a guy they made a shortstop into a pitcher. He had a really good arm. So we're in West Haven, and we're playing the Yankees, who was my nemesis. And he's pitching, and I say to somebody, I forget who it was sitting next to me, and I said, boy, you can barely see the ball when Ed throws it from his arm to the home plate. You know what he says to me? He says, "When you're on the mound, we can't see it." That's how, we can't see it when you're on the mound.
What was your relationship with Gene Mock though? I mean, I know he overutilized you. Did you ever say anything?
Look,
Well,
what do you say? You know, I mean, Calvin, the pitching coach, you knew when he said something to you, it didn't come from him.
Yeah.
It came from Gene. I mean, one time when you're going good, and back then there were no phones, warm up this guy. You had signs. My sign was this. Riser.
Yeah.
Calvin would stand out up on the top of the dugout and do this. Dale Murray was this. This. So when you were going good and the bullpen wasn't right next to the dugout, Calvin would run out there when you started to warm up. Now, me, one of the reasons why I was in the bullpen, I could pitch multiple days. 10 pitches, I'm throwing 95 plus. My first warm-up pitch is harder than Steve Renkel's best fastball ever. I mean, no, Steve was a big guy. He knew how to pitch, but he had no fastball, nothing. But he knew how to pitch, and he got away with stuff. But, I mean, Calvin would run out there and stand behind you. So when the TV cameras or whatever, they say, "Oh, there's Calvin McLeish." Blah, 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 blah. So when you were going bad, he was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
So one time when I started having another run again, and he comes out and I turn around and he's standing right behind my right arm, and I turn around to him and I say, "Hey, Calvin," I said, "if you can't stand out here when the times are tough, don't be here now." I said, "Get out of here. You're in his backdrop anyway. Hard enough to catch me without you standing there." Yeah, I told him to get lost. He was phony, man. I can't deal with that. I can't deal with that.
Awesome.
Well, but looking at how'd you get into the fur business? How did that happen? So
it was funny. A guy delivered my daughter. He's obstetric, baby doctor thing. He calls my house. My daughter wasn't even 2 months old, and I had just come back from where the hell was I? Where was it? I forget. It was after the Yankees. After the Yankees, I don't remember when it was. October '77. Where the hell was I? Anyway, so I answered the phone and says, "Oh, it's Dr. Levy." I said, "Dr. Levy." So I said, "Debbie." So I give her the phone because he didn't want to talk to me, right? So she goes, "He wants to talk to you." I said, "For what? What, are you kidding?" So he calls me up. He gives me the phone and he says, "Hey," he says, "I'm in this first store looking at some coats for my wife, and this guy has sporting news all over the place. And I told him I just delivered your baby, and he knew who you were, and he wants to meet you." So he puts him on the phone. And anyway, so he gets on the phone. He says, "Hey, why don't you come in? I'll take you and your wife to lunch." Da, da, da. So I go in. There's a little store in Freeport, which is you ever heard of the Nautical Mile?
Yeah.
All right, so that's I don't know if you knew where Freeport is, but it's there, Nautical Mile. It's anyway. I go there and I go in this store and there's a guy in a windbreaker with a wool cap on and a pair of pants that had all kinds of stains on it. So I walked by him looking for like the guy I spoke to on the phone, and it was him. He was eccentric. He was a really good guy, but he was really eccentric. And if you thought a guy who owned the first store looked like this, I mean, anyway. So he takes us to lunch. He gives my wife a hat, mink hat, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" I says, "I think it was like Wednesday." He says, "What are you doing Friday and Saturday?" I said, "Nothing." He says, "Come on in, come to work." So I go in there Friday. He takes me to Luchow's in Manhattan. All right, for lunch. Come back. It's like 3:30. Gives me $100. I said, "What's this for?" He says, "Pay." I said, "Pay?" I didn't do nothing. He took me to lunch. The next day I go back. He takes me to another place, some other thing for lunch. And then again, back, $100. So he started doing this. Pretty soon it was like Thanksgiving, and stuff. And he's saying, "Come in, Thursday, Friday, Saturday." He's giving me $100 each day for nothing. So I started to feel guilty. And I started, there were guys in the back doing stuff, making coats and doing this. So I started to watch. Then I started to sit on the machine. I started to do this. I started to do that. And next thing you know, bingo, here I am. And I'm running the store. I wound up working for outfits in the city. I traveled the United States selling to retailers all over the United States, with a truck with $500,000 worth of merchandise on it. So, anyway, hey, it was kind of funny that here from baseball, this guy, I went to meeting this guy, and we gave Sandy a jacket, a fur jacket. Took him out to dinner a couple of times.
Yeah.
Gary, huh?
And one last question, and I'll pass it off to Jerry. But do you still keep in contact with any player? I know. I mean, you still keep in contact with Gary Carter's widow. I mean, you still keep in contact.
Sandy. I think Sandy remarried.
Okay.
That's what I think. I saw something with Sandy Carter, Bing, another name there. I forget what it was. I don't get invited to this Expos thing in Montreal every year. I guess I'm just not big enough or good enough or whatever. So they snub me every year for that thing. I heard that she's possibly going this year, but I was there before. He used to sit there, to call out of Puerto Rico. You had to sit by a payphone and wait for a line, and he would sit there for literally minutes on end waiting for the call to go through to California. And then finally, she put the hammer on him, and she said, because he wasn't committing to getting married.
Yeah.
And she said, "If you're not going to marry me, I'm going to go to American Airlines and become a stewardess." Back then, they were stewardesses.
Yeah.
They weren't flight attendants. Now they're flight attendants.
Yeah.
Back then, they were steward. But once he heard that, that was the end of that. That was the end of that. He, so the only extent of our roommates became, Puerto Rico, which was 3.5 months, twice, and then in Montreal, she wound up coming to stay with him, and on the road there was only two. Ron Hunt and Jim Lytle roomed. Or was it Ron? No, Ron Hunt and the catcher, Bill Stinson. They were roomies. Jim Lytle and Ron Fairley, they were roomies. And Ernie McAnally, and I can't remember who his roommate was. Everybody else had single rooms. Everybody else.
Yeah.
All the married guys. Well, I was single. I was single when I was in the big leagues. All the married guys, you had to pay if a single room was if a double room was $75 and a single room was $82, you had to pay the $7 difference. So, did you see part of this deal with Soto? What happened? They're saying that he wanted a suite.
Yes.
And the Yankees wouldn't give him the suite because they made Jeter and they made Judge. They gave him a break, but made him pay for it. And Cohen gave him a suite.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
$760 million wasn't enough to stay with the Yankees.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
$760 million.
So we'll see what happens.
Well, Don, listen, it was really, I mean, you know, again, I always love having a fellow Italian. It makes Jimmy nervous as an Irishman. But, you know, it was really great to talk to you looking back on the 70s, good minor league stories, you know, good stories about the Expos. You know, it definitely could tell you're a character. Jimmy and I feel much better about talking to you because if we're ever out in Long Island and we know you'll give us the mattress, you'll take the box spring. So, you know, again, just to continue with this, you know, you're a part of the Expos history. You know, it was great having you. And,
not according to them.
Well, we'll have to see if we could talk to some people, Don. We're getting higher up with the Expo Nation here.
Wait, I want to ask Jimmy a question. When I was in high school, we had a gym teacher. His name was Whalen.
No relation. No relation. Not probably from the other side, but nobody I know. But
hey guys, it's been fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was great, Don. Thank you.
Hey, Don, take care, guys. Bye-bye.
All the best to you and your family. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, you too.
You know, again, like you said, continuing with the Expos Nation, you know, I think we made Danny happy again. You know, Larry Parrish, now we had on Don, you know, and this is something that, you know, we're going to look to continue to explore. And, you know, we actually talked about, we got to really talk to somebody about this convention because I think, you know, you and I might have to take a trip.
Yeah, up to Montreal. So we'll see. We'll see. But this episode was produced by Chop Sports Media, Dave Sturcio. Special thanks to Danny Gallagher for setting us up with Expos things. And look forward to another episode of Sports Consiglieres very soon. Jerry, have a great week. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care, Jimmy. Thanks again.